YouTube, there have been plenty of big moves in the 2024 NBA offseason thus far, and many contenders in the NBA, and particularly the Eastern Conference, have gotten so much better through these moves. One of the teams in the Eastern Conference that has made a big move this offseason, and have made several actually, that I think could end up shocking the NBA in 2025, that are absolutely slept on as an Eastern Conference contender, is the Orlando Magic. In this video, I'm going to explain everything I just said, why I think the Magic will shock the NBA and the Eastern Conference in the playoffs in 2025, why they got so much better, and how good they could be. What's their ceiling in the 2025 NBA season? That's what I want to talk about in this video. We're going to do an entire deep dive on the Orlando Magic for next season. Let's get right into it, folks. So while we're on the subject of, teams shocking the NBA, I think the Magic would safely be the biggest Eastern Conference surprise team last season, right? They come out and they win 47 games, end up securing a really good playoff spot. They have a really close series with the Cavaliers and end up losing. But I will say, it is clear and obvious, the young core of Paulo, Banchero, Franz, Wagner, Jalen, Suggs, and company are an absolute force to be reckoned with in the Eastern Conference. Not only are these players really good two-way players, but they are also still developing. They're going to get even better, right? Because they're all young players. Let's take some inventory of the roster as it sits right now of the Orlando Magic, and then we'll talk about the moves they've made this offseason, and then we'll talk about why I think they're so impactful for the Eastern Conference, starting with superstar forward Paolo Banchero, right? Former first overall pick, makes his first all-star selection last season, and in my opinion, the obvious best player of this team. And as I mentioned before, it's really only up from here for Paulo, right? He can get a ton better in my opinion. Something I think could be a point of emphasis this offseason is his efficiency, right? For a guy of his size and skill set, you'd like to see his field goal percentage a little bit higher, maybe his three-point and free throw as well. Maybe his turnovers go down a little bit, right? Because at the end of the day, this is still a young player as great as he is. The Magic go as far as Paulo will take them. That has been clear and evident so far, but I think it could be pretty high in the Eastern Conference moving forward. Behind Paulo, you have another two-way versatile wing, and that is Franz Wagner, right? And Wagner is a similar type of player to Paulo Banchero, right? Both of these guys get to the free throw line really well, right? They are drivers, they are slashers, they're big bodies, and they can handle the ball well for their size. They both are physical, and they can both shoot, and they both play a lot of defense, right? So there is plenty to like about this pairing. And also, Franz is, I think, maybe the better perimeter player of the two, right? These two guys are really good passers as well. I mean, this is, similar. It's on a smaller scale to like what you see from Tatum and Brown of a wing pairing, right? I mean, these guys are two-way players that can really do almost everything on the floor at once, right? They're not quite as good as Tatum and Brown, but I think they could be someday. Franz Wagner, no exception. I mean, I just love his game, and as I mentioned, young players still developing. The third guy on this core, in my opinion, has to be Jalen Suggs, right? Jalen Suggs, one of the more underrated players in the entire league. Jalen Suggs is kind of similar to me to a Derek White, right? And it's crazy that I'm saying all this because now that I'm thinking about it, the Magic really are, similar to the Celtics in terms of the team they're trying to build. Jalen Suggs, one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire league. Dude is an absolute dog. He's just all over the floor defensively, finds his way to the ball. He's just one of those guys that has great instincts on the defensive end, and on the offensive end this season, we saw a massive leap in his efficiency and production, right? A true competitor is Jalen Suggs, good playmaker, now has improved his shooting quite a bit and can score up the dribble at times. I love Jalen Suggs to be the third piece of this core moving forward. Again, another young guy that's still not even in his prime yet, in my opinion. Even just this three-man trio makes the Magic absolutely terrifying for opposing teams in the Eastern Conference, but the role players are what really separates the Magic. Now, as far as the role players, you have guards for days, right? You have tons of guard depth, right? Last season, you draft Jett Howard and Anthony Black in the first round, and both of those guys, to me, are still, kind of developing. They're not necessarily NBA ready. That could be different this season, but last season, neither of them really found a consistent role with the team. Anthony Black a little bit more than Jett Howard towards the end of the season, but these guys, I would expect them to work their way into the rotation this season, right? The Magic's biggest weakness has been their shooting and, perimeter scorers, right? But when bringing up their guard depth, you have to bring up those two guys. Their development could be a key feature for this 2025 season. We'll have to see what they look like going into the season next year. Another guard that's, a definitely starting caliber guard is Cole Anthony. I mean, Cole Anthony's had a pretty good offensive career so far. He's only 24 years old, and this is a guy that can, get up shots, and I think Cole Anthony could be best utilized in a six-man type of role. He's got all the tools to be a playmaker. He's got all the tools to be a, off the bench 6-man scorer, right? He's a really good scorer, and as I mentioned, gets a lot of shots up from that perimeter and can rebound and pass as well. I like Cole Anthony a lot as a 6-man for the Magic. Makes a lot of sense to me in 2025, but Cole Anthony, again, another young guy still improving. This is a really young roster that has a ton of great potential ahead of them, Cole Anthony being no exception. Now, Markelle Fultz, we'll have to see what happens with him. Another guard that, is eligible for rotation minutes, assuming he comes back to the Magic, but that doesn't really look like it's going to be the case. With the Magic's guard depth being so good and so deep, I think Markelle Fultz could find his way to another team, as he is still an unrestricted free agent at the time of recording this video. Wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for me if I'm the Magic to bring him back on a long-term deal. Now, the wing is stacked, as I mentioned. You have plenty of guys that can come in and contribute, primarily on the defensive end. The Magic's biggest strength to me is their size and physicality, and the wing is the best of the bunch, right? You have Paulo Banchero, as I mentioned, you have Franz, Wagner, and now you bring in Kentavious, Caldwell-Pope, right? The biggest weakness I said before was the shooting for the Magic. You bring in an absolute sniper who can also fit your defensive identity on the other end of the floor. KCP will fit in seamlessly with this team as an off-ball scorer and shooter and defensive playmaker on the other end. I love the signing for the Magic, one of the best signings of the offseason for any team in the NBA. Another wing you bring in is Tristan de Silva in the draft, and this is one of my favorite players in the draft. He's a shooter, he's a scorer, right? Tristan de Silva out of Colorado. He's an older rookie. He's 23 years old already, and he's 6'8", 220. Now, this could be a power forward, this could be a wing, still yet to be determined for me, right? But does show defensive upside as well. I think fits that identity really well for the Magic. But again, another guy that can stretch the floor. They really attacked that weakness this offseason, which is shooting, and Tristan de Silva is going to make a great fit in Orlando. I really hope to see him get some minutes, because I think he's one of the more NBA ready prospects in this draft, in my opinion. Love the pick for the Magic. Gary Harris, if you want to call him a wing, I think he's more of a combo guard, but another good shooter that you bring back on a deal, long-term deal that can, really get some shots up from that three-point territory and knock him down efficiently throughout his career, right? He's technically a shooting guard, but again, I don't know that he's much of a wing. Probably should have mentioned him with the guards, but Gary Harris, great shooter. Your wings are set. I mean, that's about as good as it's going to get from the wing position in the NBA. Not only do you have two all-star, all-NBA caliber wings in Paulo and Franz, you also have some good depth now with Tristan de Silva and bringing in KCP. So, I mean, there is just nothing not to like about this wing group. For the bigs, I mean, again, another deep group. This is a deep young team, man. I could name about 10 players that could get legitimate playing time on other teams and that deserve legitimate playing time. For the bigs, we're going to start with Jonathan Isaac. To me, he's more of a big now in his career. I think he was a wing earlier, but he could just be looked at as a, power forward or, maybe backup 5. You bring him back on a long-term deal, 5 years, right? Career-long Magic player, and obviously one of the best defensive skill sets in the entire league. Is a defensive freak, nightmare matchup. He can guard multiple positions. He's a great energy and athletic guy who can catch some lobs at the rim and score in transition. I think, again, another guy that just fits the team identity really well on both ends. Wendell Carter Jr., another great big, right? This is a guy that can get you double-double every single night in limited minutes. He doesn't even have to play 30 minutes to get you double-double. He's a great rebounder. He can shoot the three a little bit. We'll have to see if he could put together a healthy season this year, because that has been something he's been hampered with throughout his career so far with the Magic. But when he is on the floor, he clearly makes a big difference on both ends. And I think primarily offensively and rebounding wise, he is maybe your best big in those two regards. Now, you bring back Goga Bitadze, who is a big human being. I mean, this guy is massive if you see him play. He's only listed at 6'10", but, and 250, but I think he looks bigger than that to me. Another guy that can rebound and just be a dominant presence on that interior. I really like him as a backup big, only 24 years old, not really going to shoot the three or space the floor, but I just like him as an interior presence with some size. Gives you a little bit of a different look from that front court if that's what you're going for. Just the physicality of all these players is nuts. And then finally, Mo Wagner, who had a really great, probably career year last year. The brother of Franz Wagner, obviously. Mo playing such a big role for the Magic last season, and he's been with the Magic for a while, but this is a guy that can really do a lot of things from that center position. He's a big guy, number one. He's a really good size for the position, 6'11", 245, but also shoots the three well for this position as well. He's really, other than Wendell Carter, your only guy that's going to be able to do that from that big man spot, and just a really good offensive player. I like his defense as well. I think Mo Wagner is a good rotation big. So they got a lot of bigs to rotate in and out, right? And they got a lot of guards and a lot of forwards, right? And they're kind of just putting all the pieces together and see how they fit. I love the approach of the Magic to be patient with their core. I mean, this is something that a lot of teams struggle to do, I mean, how many times the first couple years of Jalen Suggs' career, another team would have traded him, for not performing up to a top 5 pick standards, right? So this is the approach I think the Magic are taking, right? They see that their core is, young, developing, and they've already had a little bit of success with each other now. And now they're developing a physical identity, right? The identity is important for a young core, and it's already taking shape, right? So there are plenty of pieces on this team that could absolutely develop next season and seasons moving forward. But I love the Magic approach to not be so trigger happy on trading or messing with this core. You want coach continuity for a young core, and that's what they're giving the Magic. Jamal Mosley did an absolutely incredible job last season, was definitely one of my top candidates for coach of the year. Easily could have won it. I mean, again, the identity is important here, and I love the physical brand of basketball the Magic are going to play. And again, I can't stress this enough. I just love the patience that the front office is showing. Sometimes they get a little impatient, the front offices, with these young cores. They say this certain guy in the core, the big three, isn't doing stuff we like this season. Let's swap him out for someone that's more ready to win now. And then you end up just kind of messing up the chemistry, and think maybe that guy doesn't work out, right? So extending this core, we'll talk about the moves here coming up, but this is such a great piece of work for this front office. I mean, just so incredible what they've done with the Magic in just a short time. This was a team that was kind of on the rebuilding carousel for a while. They end up scoring the first overall pick, Paulo Banchero, and knowing what we know now, that was the best thing they ever could have done, because him and Franz obviously being such a great pairing. This is a wing league now, and you got two of them that are elite. So the Magic have a good mix of veteran talent. They're a little on the younger side. I'd say a lot on the younger side now that I think about it, but a lot of their young players are still really great right now, so it's not like a long-term thing for a lot of these guys, but they have a good mix of project players like Anthony Black, Jett Howard, Tristan de Silva, and they also have a good mix of veterans like KCP, Gary Harris. Even some of their younger players have been around for a little while, like Cole Anthony, Goga, Bitadze, Mo Wagner, and also just like really great blue chip prospects and potential guys like Paulo and Franz. This is a good recipe. I think it's, again, reminds me of similar to the Boston Celtics dynamic they've had with their young core. So there's just so much to like. There's no reason we can't think in 3 or 4 years when, Franz and Paulo reach the age of Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, this roster won't be similar to what we see with the Celtics. In the meantime, you still get a chance to compete every year. I love what they're doing. Let's talk about the offseason moves for the Magic. They're just so slept on, man. Nobody really talks about them. I think another thing I like about the Magic, just really focusing on that core and building around them and being patient with them, is that in teams like Orlando, it's kind of a smaller market as far as the NBA, right? They're not the Celtics, they're not the Lakers, they're not the Clippers, they're not going to attract the best free agents every season, that's for sure. So when you get a good core, you really have to focus on keeping them happy, keeping them in Orlando, and keeping them, supplying them with talent that is necessary to win. And I think the Magic are really employing that strategy to perfection. You see a similar thing with OKC. Once you get a good talent, you hang on to them and you build around them. You're not going to get the big free agents every season in a small market like that. But the Magic's offseason, obviously the big thing is KCP. Again, probably the best signing they could have had. Obviously Paul George was an option for them. They were like the second team in the hunt for them. I actually might like the KCP signing better for the Magic. I wouldn't want Paul George to come in and take a lot of the shots away from your young core. As I mentioned, you don't want to mess things up there. You want to see what you really have with this core. And I think adding a piece like KCP who can just supplement and just be a complementary piece to them is the best thing they could have done, right? So KCP not only fit basketball wise perfectly, right, with the shooting and the defense and the off-ball, value that he adds, while you have guys like Paulo and Franz doing most of the damage offensively, but also he's just not going to come in and demand a ton of shots, right? So I think that is the biggest thing to note here. I actually like this better than if you were to get Paul George. Obviously, if you get Paul George, things change drastically in the Eastern Conference, and you're already, a top Eastern Conference contender. But on the meantime, Paulo and Franz, maybe you don't see their full potential moving forward. So love the move with KCP. Obviously, he signs a 3-year, $66 million deal, probably the best move of free agency, again, other than the Sixers, Paul George. But, the big thing in this offseason, again, is just focusing on that core. You lock down Franz Wagner for a 5-year max extension, Mo Wagner, 2-year deal, Jonathan Isaac, 5-year extension, Gary Harris, 2-year deal, Goga Bitadze, 3-year deal. I mean, you just really put an emphasis on bringing back this core, which is your saving grace of this franchise. So that is A+. They might not be flashy, or people might say, oh, they're boring, right? That's boring moves. Re-signing good players that you already have, which is insane logic to say, but it's so underrated to be able to keep your good players, man. Like that's why free agency is so exciting, is because not every team gets to do that. Not every team has the resources and plays their cards right with each player to where they can retain all the good ones. That's part of being a great franchise, is retaining the good ones. It's not boring. It's never necessary if you want to win, and the Magic did it better than anyone this offseason, in my opinion. I mean, you only lose really Joe Ingles and maybe Markelle Fultz, who were kind of fringe rotation guys anyway, and if you bring them back, they weren't even going to play with all the new talent you acquired, like Tristan de Silva, like KCP, right? So you basically upgraded on a ton of different things, and not only that, the young players are going to be a year better and a year hungrier, and now they have a little bit of playoff experience. So this is an A+ offseason for the Magic. This is an A+ roster build by the front office, and you just have to give a ton of credit to everyone in that organization for finally figuring it out. I think they've totally done it, and I give the Magic an A+ the way they're running things in that organization. As far as the Eastern Conference, this team is slept on. I mean, this could be a top 4 seed. I wouldn't even be surprised. This could be a top 6 seed. I'd expect that. If they make the play-in team, I think they disappointed you, right? This is a playoff team, no question. People talk about the Miami Heat, the Indiana Pacers, you know, we know the top of the Eastern Conference is going to be the Celtics, the Knicks, and the Sixers, and the Bucks, most likely, right? But then the Magic are right there with Milwaukee, in my opinion, as far as like teams like that. You know, I think the Sixers and the Knicks are a little bit better right now, but I could be wrong about that too. If you want to talk about the regular season, I mean, they have the youth to be able to go as hard as they can every game, you know, and not a lot of teams at the top of the conference can say that, other than maybe Boston, but even some of their core is a little bit older now. So Sixers have some injury issues, right? They have some older players like Embiid and Paul George who are going to be in and out of the lineup at times throughout the season with injuries. Knock on wood, as a Sixers fan, that doesn't happen too much, but I know it's coming a little bit at least. The Magic could score a top 4 seed, no question about it, with their youth and their, you know, additions in the offseason. This is a team, I could definitely see a world where they're in the conference finals. I could definitely expect a world where they're in the second round, you know? You are maybe even more talented and more, you know, win now ready than a team like the Miami Heat. On paper, you know, and just knowing what I know about this, you know, the way they played last season, I might favor them over teams like the Miami Heat or the Indiana Pacers or the Cleveland Cavaliers, just because of their identity, right? I love, you know, physical basketball and defensive toughness and grittiness always translates to the playoffs. That is the one thing you can count on. It travels with you on the road, right? Intensity and defensive toughness and physicality always travels with you, right? And so the playoffs, that is your number one thing that you're gonna need to have on that end of the floor. And if you just bring that every night, you know, that is about as good as it gets, right? So especially for a young team, instilling them with that identity is so important. Not only that, but just on the floor, you are bigger than most teams, especially in the front court. I mean, this is a massive team. I mean, and then you add some offensive pieces like Tristan de Silva and KCP to come in and help you on that end of the floor. So that was kind of the issue with the Magic last season. While they had one of the best defenses in the league, maybe the best in the Eastern Conference, you know, the offense was just, you know, you didn't have the right balance there at times. And that's what I think KCP gives you. Hopefully, again, Anthony Black, Jett Howard, these guys can develop a little bit. I think they could make good offensive players in the future, but we'll have to see how it goes this season in particular. You know, I think they could be still a little ways away, but, you know, with Markelle Fultz leaving, I think you might have some more opportunities for a guy like Anthony Black. But overall, you know, this is a team that's just hungry. They're, you know, dedicated to winning, and they're doing it the right way. And I just give them, again, an A+ for how they're running their team. I think they are scary and slept on in the East. I don't think enough people are talking about them, man, because they're not that, you know, historically good team like the Heat have been the last decade. They're not the Boston Celtics in terms of NBA history. They're not, you know, the Sixers with the flashy offseason move. They're not the Knicks with the media attention, right? They're the Magic with the win now roster, and I think they're going to be able to do that in 2025. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day today. Make sure you guys drop a like on the video. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the Magic. How good do you think they can be in the Eastern Conference next season in 2025? Do you think they're, you know, an Eastern Conference Finals team, maybe, potentially, right? Can you see that? Or do you think I'm maybe over exaggerating? I don't think I am. Obviously, I wouldn't be making this video, but this is a team, again, that I just don't know how you can't love, right? And on paper, I think they are as good as those other teams, a lot of them. So assuming everything goes well, you know, knock on wood for Magic fans. If you're a Magic fan, let me know down in the comments what you think of my video and my takes. You guys definitely know more about the Magic than I do, so I love hearing from the perspective of the fan base I'm talking about with the team, because, you know, for like an example, as you know, I talked about this in the Memphis video, and, you know, the Memphis fan base was really great at this. Shout out to them for all the feedback. When you're a fan of a team, you follow them closely every day. You know, there's just going to be little things and nuanced things that you notice that, you know, outside fans won't. No matter how much they pay attention to your team, they just won't know these things, right? So if you guys have any of those little facts or whatever that I'm missing in this video, clearly I'm not getting the full picture because I'm not a Magic fan. I don't watch them every day. Let me know down in the comment section, Magic fans, what do you think of your team next season? You got to be so excited to just have a good team again. You know, that's one of the things about the Magic fans I could be excited for. Put myself in their perspective. perspective. You know, you guys go through a long period of rebuild and, you know, really since Dwight Howard left, right? So this has got to be a great feeling for you, and I'm riding for you guys. You know, obviously if the Sixers are matching up with you, I want you to go down, but that's beside the point, right? But I'm rooting for every team, you know, and especially the Magic. I love rooting for young, hungry teams that have potential. That's one of my favorite things about the league, is to watch teams like that rise up and become like the Boston Celtics, right? But if it comes to it in the playoffs, you know, the Sixers got you, man. I'm telling you, I'm not rooting for you then, not 1 second. But again, Magic fans, let me know. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic rest of your day today. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel for more NBA content every day. We upload content just like this every day, all things NBA every day on the Dehave channel. That's my promise to you. So subscribe if you guys don't want to miss more content. Could be talking about your favorite team next. I'll catch you guys in the next one. This is your boy Dehave, and as always, peace.